we haven't talked much about.
Mhm.
But for the viewing audience who's jumping in, this is Rachel Blankhorn. She is the social media production person for Sun Outdoors.
Manager. Yep.
Manager. Okay, social media manager. I was looking at your Instagram and it said something like that. But you were just commenting, you came on during the pandemic, and we haven't
Yes.
talked a lot about this. What was like the marketing imperative that was put on you for the pandemic? Like, how did an organization as big as Sun Outdoors back then, what was the MO for marketing? Like, I can't imagine.
I mean, we were hustling during the pandemic because, like a lot of outdoor type businesses, everything was booming then. People couldn't be
That's
around each other
right.
indoors. So it actually opened up a lot more veins. And I think it opened up a lot of people's eyes to what it is to like experience the outdoors with, either by yourself or with your loved ones, with your family. And so we were seeing a lot of new business coming in at that time because there was a lot of people that were like, you know what, I'm just sitting at home. I am missing out on so much around us. Like I'm
Yep.
going to either, sell my house and get an RV or, buy
That's
a
right.
van and fix it up and start exploring or, anything like that, or just getting out of the house and just seeing more of the world around you and being able to be with your loved ones and seeing your
Yeah.
friends. At least you can do that outside at the time. We were kind
Yeah.
of had that distance going on and social distancing. So I think people were starting to shift their values into what they saw as important, and they didn't want to be missing out on, all the world around us because there's so much to see. I
Interesting.
mean, just from my personal experience, since I started at Sun, I have visited so many states I can't even count, and so many cities and resorts and campgrounds and all of that. That
You just
you
did a
know,
summary post on LinkedIn about this, I think.
yes, I did.
That was great. And so, like, what people don't realize and what you're getting at, so I have a web design company or web support company, and you have an outdoors company. And I don't know how your job was affected. We didn't know each other then, but like a lot of people were laying off, and you just said, I got hired during that season.
Yep.
We blew up as a web company because people were like, crap, I've been neglecting my web presence.
Right.
And for you, you're saying you were hired on because, and in the back of my mind, I was thinking, well, they just need to hustle to generate business. And you're saying, no, we had to hustle because to stay ahead of the business.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's wild. How did you, you left this note here. How did you end up at Sun Outdoors? How'd you get there? How'd you wind up there?
So I got laid off, like I said. Well, I didn't say that here, I guess, but yeah. So I got laid off just as the pandemic was starting, which was, pretty tough. A lot of other people did too. So I was kind of in that same boat, that same bucket of trying to figure out, like, one, like what's really important to me at this time of uncertainty, and two, like where do I want to take the skills I currently had. And I had been working for a startup before Sun Outdoors,
Mm-hmm.
so kind of to what we were talking earlier before we went live, like wearing a lot of hats.
Yeah.
So I was able to kind of figure out what skills I had learned from that and market myself to different companies. And yeah, I stumbled upon Sun Outdoors actually on LinkedIn and
Mm.
from a job posting they had, and just shoot my shot, applied and
Good. I guess
applied.
it turned
I
out to be
think
good timing.
yeah. Yeah, and it was a very big pool of applicants from what I was told too. So I was very grateful to be able to, stand out and get in there. And yeah, once I had met my boss, it was just kind of an instant connection, and we immediately kind of got each other. We both kind of had that, go-getter kind of attitude. And I think coming from a startup, that's probably what set me apart, is because you had to just roll your sleeves up and jump in, and that was kind of what
Yeah.
we were looking for at Sun at the time, was someone who was going to change things up a bit and not be afraid to like try new things. And so here I
Give me
am.
an example of trying new things. Like, what do you mean? Just like, how do you mean that?
Well, I mean, for instance, when I started at Sun, we had just gotten a TikTok account.
I was
So
going to ask about this. Go ahead.
yeah, so it was brand new. I think when I joined in the fall of 2020, we had about 25 followers. So um, so barely anything. We were kind of like trying to, before I came on, they were kind of repurposing a few old video campaigns that they had done, and some other like promo videos, but nothing was really created for the platform before I joined. So that was kind of
Mm.
my first task, was figuring out what is this TikTok thing and how can we break into it and how can we be the industry leaders on the platform.
Oh, wow.
So it really just came down to, my boss and I drove out. We couldn't fly because it was
Yep.
COVID. We drove up to Petoskey, Michigan, to one of our resorts out there, Sun Outdoors Petoskey Bay Harbor, and just started brainstorming ideas for content. And then over the course of a couple days, shot a bunch of things, stockpiled it, and started putting it out there and seeing what stuck and how it resonated with the audience. And it was a good time to get on the platform too, because
So you were doing the videography. You were creating the content. You were creating the videos.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
There you go.
Wow.
Start to finish, putting all the type. Before they had the auto closed captions, I was typing out the captions.
Oh,
rolling up those sleeves.
Yeah, literally. That was it. I was doing a lot of voiceovers back then. So if you scroll real far down, you'll hear my voice.
That's funny. So you're talking about platform-specific content creation. Most people just cross-post, right? They create an Instagram reel, cross-post. What over the last few years have you discovered is unique in a content piece for TikTok versus Reel that it could only and should only be created on that platform?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, I will say we've definitely gotten more in tune to repurposing content on the platforms. Just what I feel like what I've seen is TikTok or Reels is really just trying to become TikTok. Like they're trying. Instagram. We say with love is having an identity crisis, and they are trying to shift video so hard. But I think TikTok is more. I think it's more communal based than Instagram seems to be. I feel like Instagram used to be a place where there was a lot of conversation happening, and I haven't seen it so much anymore. It seems to be a lot more surface level, whereas TikTok, you still see a lot of conversations happening. Like me personally, when I'm
are you talking about in comments?
Yes, in the comment section.
Okay,
Like people
I
are
agree.
way more active.
A lot of effort for there to be comments and conversation in an Instagram post versus a TikTok. And a lot of times that conversation's usually instigated by somebody who's upset or doesn't like what you're saying. And I mean, you can find that on TikTok too, but there's a lot more conversation on TikTok.
Yeah. The way I've been saying it, so I stepped away from Facebook for quite some time. And, I had a strong presence in Facebook. I got 2 groups I manage. And anytime I dip my toe back into Facebook, it takes off. But I always forget that. And I've been doing Instagram a lot and driving some of those numbers, focusing on that. My TikTok account, I'm about 19,000 TikTok followers. And that was just on one particular viral runaway thing. Make sure my camera's there. Yeah. And so it took off. And this phrase occurred to me recently. I love Instagram, but the downside is that it's not a two-way conversation. It's a one-way.
Yep.
And TikTok has been able to be almost like a one-way media channel, but it's a two-way, like you're saying, community. It's a two-way conversation. And Facebook, it's obviously a two-way conversation at every step of the way. And so I've been trying to get my head, how do we make Instagram more, and now to borrow your word, more community-driven? And it's like, I mean, the broadcast channels are new, and I haven't made use of them. Have you had any luck with those?
No, I have not used them at all.
Yeah, I haven't gotten into that either, and I need to because I get the invites all the time. But that might be an attempt to create a two-way conversation. And let me ask you this from community efforts, so just in your experience, and I know people want to hear about travel and sun outdoors and RV, but just in general, social media stuff is really necessary. Do you find ROI in general on community building?
Yeah, I mean, people don't want to just be blasted with advertisements all the time. I think we're getting really fatigued by it, and having a more of a personal touch is really what's setting brands apart these days. So if you're not engaging with your own audience, if you're just sitting there tapping the like button and being real lazy on every comment, then they're gonna see right through that. It's not personal at all. And I think a lot of audiences are looking for brands that they can relate to and that have something to say. Yeah. So if you're letting that go to the wayside, I think it's a big missed opportunity.
What's the level of work, though, on community building?
It is a lot.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking when I think of community building, I think that's where influencers become really like a key part of the strategy because they're bringing their community, but it's also a real person that your own community relates to and wants to engage with more than some of that like standard video or stock. So
yeah, we've been definitely taking advantage of like collab posts on our Instagram. We've seen a huge value in that because it's not, again, just us talking. It's letting our actual guests talk who would care. I'm so sorry, my dog just was hacking. Okay.
I can't hear it. I can't hear it.
Anyway.
Zoom life. That's funny. So, I mean, you're hitting on influencers, and that's really important. How long have y'all, Sun Outdoors, been working in general, like intentionally with influencers?
Since right around the time I joined, actually, around 2020 is when they started testing the waters, like right around the time, maybe the summer before I jumped on and joined the team. And then it's just kind of grown from there. I've taken the reins as the production manager and kind of built out programs within the organization so that we can kind of have things streamlined. And we've seen a huge success. I mean, it's not only like giving more authenticity to our brand, it's also, I think, creating loyalty even with the people we're working with because they're coming to our properties, and some of the RVers that we've worked with or some of the travel influencers that we've worked with have never been to a Sun Outdoors resort or hadn't heard of Sun Outdoors. And so like actually working with them in a way is helping us get new audiences and get new customer bases as well. So
I've learned this from Gabby. So we interviewed Adventures with Gabby, and she mentioned Yogi.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yogi
Bear, Yellowstone, or whatever they are.
Not
Camp Jellystone.
Yellowstone. Yep. I had never heard of these, but what I learned from that conversation, she's a real fangirl, and a lot of people think, maybe you could correct me, a lot of people superficially think influencers are just like mouthpieces for hire, but what I'm finding out is they have an authentic appreciation for the stuff they're hyping, and they're really joyful once they create a collab or do a deal with a brand. They're actually grateful for it because they've learned to actually really dig the brand. They're actually loyal to it.
Or they're already like with Sun Outdoors, you're bringing in new travelers, but there's a lot of people that know you already. But I think most creators are looking for partners that are with a brand that they already enjoy, know, love.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're still open to new partnerships, but a lot of times, even I think on your end, it's nice to work with somebody who already has a familiarity with the Sun Outdoors, and so that makes that relationship even more authentic. Yeah.
So and just to clarify for the layperson so that I understand, you're looking through feeds, maybe people who have tagged the brand, maybe people who have used your hashtags, and there might be an outreach to them or something like that.
Absolutely. I mean, it doesn't hurt to check that. I mean, that's such a underused tool. I feel like it's just searching into your tagged feed and seeing who's talking about you. And then like, again, that kind of goes to having that conversation. It's like, don't just like their post, like comment on it, like tell them what you liked about it, or make them feel good about the fact that they're staying with you, because that's going to make them feel good and make them want to do it more. So it's literally free advertising for the brand. And that's one thing we always look for too when we're working or considering to work with a new creator or a new influencer, is the authenticity factor. Like if I go on their feed and it's just splattered with brand deals and nothing else, then to me that tells me you're not in it for the actual value of the product. You're just in it for having that deal. I want to know like what is it about you that is special? Like what is your audience actually gravitating towards, and like how are they engaging with you as a creator? If all I see is just like blanket comments that just say love it, or like nothing is actually inspiring conversation, then to me that's not someone who's really going to have influence on a brand.
No, they're not building a community. They're just throwing things at their community as opposed to engaging with them.
Exactly.
Now, you use these phrases, and I've heard you say it several times, I think. You distinguish influencer from content creator.
I do, yes.
How does that work? What is the difference to you?
Yeah, it's something I'm trying to get the rest of our organization to understand as well, especially when we are communicating with our resorts and our resort staff to understand like what is the difference. So to me, an influencer is one part content creator, but then they're also promoting your product while they're either at your resort or, you know, using whatever it is you've mailed them. But they're actually posting about your product or service on their feed in order to bring awareness to the brand and potentially garner business and actual revenue from it. Whereas I see content creators actually having almost more value because they are the people that I'm going to be sending out to our properties, and they are going to be capturing content that we then can use, you know, what we call UGC, user generated content, that then can be used throughout the year in different marketing initiatives by us as a brand, which will get us, you know, a much easier ROI. I think for us, it's a little bit challenging because I like to say, like, we're not selling lipsticks. You know, our product is not a $15 quick, like, thoughtless purchase that you can just quickly sign up with your Apple Pay and buy it. Ours is a little bit of a longer game. Most people are not just booking a vacation after 30 seconds of thought.
But they're saving that post and they're coming back to it when they go to plan a family vacation. I know I personally do that when I'm like, oh, that place looks cool. I don't want to forget about that. So I'll bookmark it. And I actually have a collection called like family vacays or something like that. And then I'll skim through it when it starts to get closer to spring break. And I'm like, oh yeah, I want to go to that park and that park. So it is a long game. And you bring that up. That's something that, you know, is always a talk in the industry is like, how do you measure ROI when you work with a creator and influencer? And do you guys have but company-wide measurements of how to measure that influencer or creator campaign?
Yeah.
And are those different measurements for you?
We've been having a lot of discussions about that as well. We've done some tests in our markets with doing, you know, unique promo codes and things like that to get bookings. But like you said, like most people aren't going to book within that short window that campaign might be running. So for us, the value has more been on the actual awareness and impressions that they're actually bringing with the posts that they're sharing on their feeds. And then the other part is if they're doing more content creation, then the value is literally the content they're delivering to us, because that's something that we could potentially share on our website. We could be using that on, you know, our own social media platforms. We could be using that on our ads, digital, all of that. So that is helping us, again, taking like work off of like our internal marketing team's load of like, you know, we just have fresh content coming in all the time that we can keep using to promote all of our different properties, because we have like over 170 locations. So it's impossible for one person to visit all of those even in a year and get new content. So.
Yeah.
And you've seen the other side of that when they handed you TikTok and there was literally like old dated video campaigns that aren't relevant. And to have creators who are on the cutting, like on the edge of everything that's trending, when even if it comes from like audio to like just, you know, like popular trends on the internet. I mean, not the internet, but on Instagram or TikTok, that they are the ones that kind of keep you at the front line of relevance a lot of times. So I definitely hear you on that, but that is having fresh content all the time is such a value.
Well, and yeah, so we've been having conversations with clients and potential clients in this sphere of what is oftentimes you'll put a quote, like, we will put a quote in front of companies like yours, and we'll say, here's our invoice. And, you know, the first time, especially for people who aren't as experienced as you are in working with influencers and content creators, they look at a price tag and like, time out. This has got to translate specifically to reservations, or this has to translate directly to bookings, like you said, with promo codes. But what I hear you saying is it's rarely like that. We anchor when we say yes to an influencer's bill, we're saying yes to deliverables, and we're saying yes to understanding that awareness and engagement and community building is just the cost of doing business. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's always icing on the cake if you can get reservations and actual like direct revenue out of it. But going back to your point earlier about community building, that's kind of the main goal, is keeping the conversations going and keeping the brand top of mind on all of the platforms that we're working with different creators on.
And there's always those measurements of likes, engagement, saves. So you can still pull metrics and have some analytical data to look at the performance of a post and to gauge, you know, the influencer partnership. So those metrics are always there. I think it's the long game, as you referenced, that starts to make it a little bit more challenging. But, you know, there's a lot of other value adds that come from a campaign.
Yeah,
That
even like the comments, like I will even, there's the actual like numeric values, but I also take the time to read every single comment on an influencer post that we do for a collab. And I will look at those. And usually what I'll do is end up screenshotting a lot of them. If I see that there's like ones that are more stand out, if someone's actually in there asking questions, they might be wondering like, is this resort open year round, or, things like that, that actually we could jump in as a brand and start replying to and potentially get someone to book just from those comments. So it's really important to analyze all of that and not just focus all on the numbers too.
The influencer or creator also becomes a hand for your customer service. And so usually what I'll do if I'm working with one is give them like an FAQ that they're probably going to get from followers or just, whoever's commenting. So they have the right information quickly. And so they don't lose interest of the person who's, asking that quick question, whether they shoot it back to them in a DM. So I feel like the customer service part of partnerships is becoming or has been really important. And it's something I don't think everybody thinks of when they're entering, or businesses don't think about that is literally an arm of your customer service department now.
Yeah, that's a great point. I never thought of it that way, but you're totally right, Nicole.
Yeah.
If you've equipped them and they have,
Well, that's what it was. It was a couple times. It only took a couple times. I'm like, they're asking them business specific questions, hours of operation, and especially working with so many small business owners here in Polk County. It's like that. How quick you have someone's attention. You only have a second, so you got to answer them or direct them to the right person. So the talent needs to have that information, and they get that with that creator brief at the beginning. Is usually when I'll stack it in there. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you're on that side of the equation. Let me ask you this. You said that you guys that Sun Outdoors and your team was firing up influencer work about the time you were coming on. What were some of the early absolute mess ups that influencers were doing that started forming some internal rules? Like, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. Like, what were some of the obvious snafus that if someone were starting in, you just know to tell them, don't do X, don't do Y. Some of the bigger mistakes.
I guess one for us that really stands out is just the way that some of them had been presenting themselves when they were at our resorts. Like, you just, how do I word this?
I know. That was like,
I'm trying to be very
on the right road.
about it. But you're being paid to do a job. You need to have a good attitude when you're there. You can't just be there trying to dictate our resort staff's lives and like what they're there to do.
Interesting.
At the end of the day, you're a guest. It doesn't, just because you're being paid to be here doesn't mean you're going to have everyone wait hand and foot on you. So you kind of have to check yourself a little bit. I think some of the people we had worked with much earlier on didn't understand that, and that would get back to us.
Yeah.
It's like, we know our resort staff. They're not just, if someone's not being treated with respect, we're going to find that out. So you need to really be conscious of how you are representing yourself as an influencer, especially if you're somewhere where like you're staying at our property. It's not like you're just using a product from home or something like that, but like you kind of have to be conscious of how you're presenting yourself to the world and all of that. So that was one big one.
You feel that has changed? Like, the stories of, and this goes to you as well, Nicole, this question, the stories of, high and mighty influencers, no matter what their price tag, micro or big, those anecdotes, I don't hear them as much lately. Was that an early stage influencer thing, or you think it still goes on?
I mean, most of the people I deal with are pretty professional and they take their job very seriously. So I think it's like anything. It's like there's a bad egg or somebody who just hasn't figured out that this is a profession and kind of are treating it like a hobby or something, something they can take for granted. But most of the people, especially RV travelers, like this is a livelihood for them. And so they take they're usually really professional to work with, especially with direction. But yeah, there's always there's always those couple that you have to redirect more than others.
Yep. And we usually build that out too. The first time we work with someone, I usually kind of give them a brief and like leading up to their arrival, like, here's what we're expecting from you kind of thing. So that way that is set ahead of time.
Yeah.
Other things I've had happen in the past would be like an influencer trying to call me at like 8 o'clock at night, like when I'm like, oh, this is, I do have a life outside of work.
Business hours, please.
Yeah. So similar things like that, where it's like, okay, is this really an emergency? Could you send me an email and I can get to it? You know, I'm very prompt in my email replies. Nicole will tell you.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
So there, you know, just things like that. I think it's a lot of like the learning curve of like actually being a professional with this industry and not just taking it seriously.
So I have to imagine that since 2020, you have done a lot of content. You've seen a lot of stuff perform well, perform poorly. Like, what makes a good piece of content?
Yeah, what are you looking for now in this kind of, especially going into the new year?
Definitely quality, and what I mean by that is visual quality. So I think our standards as users on social media are getting higher and higher. When I first started, it was almost the reverse, where it was like the less polished content looked, the better it would perform. But now I think we're starting to get back to an appreciation as an audience of things that are, you know, that have the time taken to actually like look like a good piece of content and look professional. So I look for content that is well crafted, that's thoughtful. You know, you're not just, you can take the pictures with your iPhone, you can take the video with your iPhone, that's great, but like, are you taking it with an iPhone 6? Or you know, like you need to be thinking of those things too.
Yeah.
Even ourselves, like we're upgrading our own internal equipment too, as you know, technology is advancing. You know, video quality has gotten so much better on mobile, so you need to be able to adapt to that and recognize that, and it'll honestly just push you to be more purposeful with the content you're creating too. And I think, yeah, it's about creating content with thought and not just putting content out there just to put it out there. Like,
More
what is
storytelling in your content. I think people are expecting more of that, like
Yeah.
beginning, middle, and end almost, you know?
And it's tough in the world of like, hook me in 1 second. It's still tough to tell a story because stories need a setup, you know?
Yeah.
But that's the art of it.
It
So
is.
so maybe that's an interesting question. Has being a social media manager and all the hats you wear there, how has that made you grow professionally as a marketer, more broadly?
I've had to really take into account other opinions from outside of like just social media in order to do that. And I think it's helpful that we do have a decent size, a pretty good size, like internal marketing department at Sun. So um, I've taken the approach of branching out and not just staying in this little bubble of social, and actually like talking with our creative director, talking with our copywriter, talking with our web team, and like really just seeing what they're seeing work and figuring out how we can take that back and apply it, and also listening to the actual field, because sometimes I think you need to wear the hat of the actual people who are being impacted by these things, like influencers, for example. Like I could just be sending people out all day and never talking to the property, but maybe actually like hearing from them what's going on the ground level is going to inform me and on how to better guide and direct influencers when they're actually going to those properties, like knowing what's actually happening. So I've just like started asking a lot more questions instead of just assuming now that I've been here.
Yeah. And so real quick, how, like, I saw your note on this and I'm really intrigued because with my website company, I'm seeing it impacted significantly, but not in the way people think. So how AI is impacting things. In website design, it's progressive, but it's not really affecting the tech much because, you know, there's limitations from the dynamism of a website, but the market thinks it's dramatically different. So price points are changing. But in marketing and content creation, what is AI doing that you're seeing? Is it impactful or are people not having it? Like, tell me about how AI's doing, what AI is doing to your industry.
Yeah, it's everywhere now. I mean, we're starting to notice it popping up in every little tool we use as an organization in the marketing department. I mean, you know, whether it's like a scheduling tool or even workflow tools and things like that, I'm starting to see more of that kind of pop into the fold. And we have been, what's the word? Cautiously optimistic about it. We're embracing it, but we also know that there's value to an actual human touch on things. So we've had a lot of discussions internally around like, SEO and copywriting and things like that, and how we can use those tools to help, but it shouldn't be the end all be all. Like you shouldn't just be telling ChatGPT like to write you a caption for a post and then just copying and pasting it and saying, I'm good, I did my job. You should be analyzing what they've actually done and tweaking that to still make sure it's fitting your brand voice at the end of the day. Because I don't think that that AI is sophisticated enough to really hit that voice. And I don't think it's ever going to be perfect. So you have to take everything it does with a grain of salt and really make sure that it's not going to actually like detract from your brand and your messaging.
Is video content creation or is visual AI content creation even really showing up yet in a useful way?
I haven't seen it too much in a useful way, at least for us, because we don't want we want to be authentic as a brand. So for us, it wouldn't really make sense for us to use AI to show off one of our properties, because then you're sending the wrong message and people are going to assume that's going to be there when it's not. So for us, we've shied away from doing it on the visual side. I mean, there's certain things that could be helpful for like, cleaning up a photo or something, or maybe you run out for a shoot and it was cloudy, but normally every other day, of course, it's like sunny, like in Florida, like we're talking about, it's raining with you guys right now. So like, there's things like that, but we don't want it to get to a point of not being authentic to what we're actually trying to sell. It just wouldn't work for us as a brand, since we're actually selling a specific product, like a place to go.
Experience.
Experience. Yeah. So
in some of these, we profiled an AI influencer.
Oh yeah.
And this AI influencer, I forget her name. Yeah, she's completely artificial. She has like 120,000 followers. And what they do is they take real footage of the location, and then they stick that into the AI and superimpose this personality. So like, have you been approached for any services like that? I'm just curious on how that you guys would have responded to that. But yeah, if you haven't been approached, that's neither here nor there. But we saw it, we were like, what is this?
It was creepy. I'm sorry, it was creepy.
It had a creepy factor for sure.
Yeah.
It was a little too sultry, right? Like it was a little risque. And correct me if I'm wrong, Sun Outdoors is a family brand, yes?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Interesting. Man, that's nuts. So like, what's next? What's next for you professionally? What's next on the horizon for 2024 that you can share?
Oh man, well, we've been putting the word out that we have a new influencer program launching in 2024. I can't share all the details yet, but it is called the Sunbassador program. So we're going to be working with a handful of creators throughout the year, visiting our properties, and it'll be kind of like I mentioned, like a way to get UGC, but also to bring awareness to our brand. So it's just kind of giving it a more official title. So we're really excited for that. And then we're also kind of looking into developing relationships with current creators that we've been working with in 2023 and figuring out how those are going to evolve into 2024. We haven't really talked about this too much, but I think there is a shelf life with influencers after a while when it comes to them partnering with a specific brand. And eventually their audience may seem to get kind of tired. Like the content, you might start seeing it drop off as far as the engagement rate goes. But if there is still talent there, how can you mold that differently and still continue to work with them in maybe a different way than just trying to push out the awareness on their platform? So if they're very talented in media creation, like how can you partner with them in different ways that would still benefit both parties mutually? So those are some things we're trying to explore next year as well.
What are you guys going to do on YouTube so that you're creating more SEO? Do you already have a channel, and are you having your influencers cross post to YouTube Shorts to help with clicks and website traffic?
Yes. Yep. We do use YouTube Shorts quite a bit, and we have worked with influencers who are cross posting a lot of their content. We actually do use a lot of suggestive like AI for SEO as well to make sure we are hitting our keyword allotment and making sure that we're not just missing something, because there could be, it actually helps us even for inspiration for content of what to post by like figuring out like what are certain terms that are being searched a lot of times on, 'cause YouTube's Google at the end of the day. I mean, they literally own it, but like even some of the other platforms like TikTok are becoming more of a search engine. So how do you take advantage of that with the content? So yeah,
we forget that. Like as soon as you get into a social platform, you're scrolling and you're engaged, but you forget these are some of the largest search engines that if you queried, it's going to tell you what's popular, what people are talking about, and how to ride that wave. So before we get out of here, for the sake of time, what brings you the most joy in your job?
Definitely the travel. I mean, I'm a Midwest girly. I grew up from, just going up north in Michigan, and that was kind of our family vacation. So to be able to see so much of the country in the short time I've been at this job has just been fantastic. I've met so many great people, and I've gotten to see and experience so many different things. So
you can tell you're truly enjoying yourself in your content. It really comes through.
It does.
I'm glad.
It does. Yeah. Thinking of that one post I read for sure. Well, how can people follow Sun Outdoors? How do they actually engage with the brand?
Yeah, we are everywhere. We are on Instagram, TikTok, at Sun Outdoors, Facebook. A lot of our resorts also have their own platforms too, so you can kind of search for those ones, and follow them as well. We're also on TikTok, obviously. We're even on LinkedIn at Sun Communities and Sun Outdoors, all in one. So yeah, follow us, and we'd love to connect.
You'll be at the Florida RV Super Show as well, right? Will you have an actual vendor space, or are you going to be hanging out in like
Yes, we will have a vendor space. I personally will probably not be at the booth, but Nicole, I did want to talk to you. I'm probably going to be there on Monday night for the creator meetup. So we definitely got to talk more about that offline. But yes, Sun Outdoors will have a big booth there as well.
Okay.
Wonderful. Awesome. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll see you then. I know that she will. I'll be there the next day, but maybe that evening we'll see.
Press day. We're going to set up the HotSpark show and interview some people live from there. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Have a great one, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, same to you.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.